This panel was made possible by View Conference, the world-class event on animation, VFX, games, AI, and much more. Our dates for 2026 are from the 12th to the 16th of October. We hope to see you in beautiful Turin, Italy, or online. For more information about View Conference, please visit viewconference.it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to today's preview panel discussion, 5 Oscar contenders for Best Animated Short. I'm Dan Sarto. I'm the editor-in-chief and publisher of Animation World Network, AWN.com, and VFX World. For the next hour, we're going to take a deep dive into the minds of the filmmakers behind this year's Oscar-nominated animated shorts. We've got 4 of the 5 filmmakers here, and we're going to take advantage of this gathering to hopefully pepper them with questions that they haven't already heard and answered 1,000 times. First, real quick, I want to thank Dr. Maria Elena Gutierrez, the director of the View Conference. As I like to say, a singular force of nature and one of the most thoughtful, passionate, and energetic voices in animation, VFX, gaming, and transmedia industries. Maria Elena, thank you and the View Conference for hosting this panel and inviting me and everyone else to join you. Of all the things we cover, I love the animated shorts because you know they're passion projects. You know none of the filmmakers ever make a cent from it. It's years of their lives and lots of money on their part because they're determined to tell a story that they want they want to share with everyone. The films for this year is another wonderful group of shorts. Wide range of state-of-the-art visual styles, stop motion, hand-drawn 2D and 3D CG, but equally and even more important, compelling, well-crafted, and emotional storytelling that makes tremendous use of the medium of animation to capture our attention and our hearts. We have the directors and producers and some of the producers of 4 of the 5 nominated films with us today. Unfortunately, Shirin and Hossein who made In the Shadow of the Cypress, and they aren't able to join us. But please, if you get a chance, check out their film. I know it took years to make, and we just interviewed them and wrote about it on AWN, and it's quite a story, quite a challenge to make that film. We're going to introduce our teams right now real quick, and then we're going to jump right into questions. So Nicolas Keppens, who did Beautiful Men. We've got Nina Gantz, who did Wander to Wonder. We've got Loïc Espuche, who did Yuck. And we've got Takashji Washio, who did Magic Candies. We have an interpreter who will help us glean information from him. So congratulations to all of you. This is a singular feat to be recognized this way, and good luck at the Oscars, and thank you for joining us. So we're going to get started. Nicolas, I'm going to start with you. Why make this film? Why tell this story? When did you first get the idea, and what was it about this idea that compelled you to turn it into a short film?
It was in 2019 when I went to Istanbul, and I was there for work, so I didn't take my hotel myself. And when I woke up in the morning with my colleagues, we entered the breakfast room, and we didn't know that the hotel had a collaboration with a hair transplant clinic. So we entered the breakfast room, and it was a very silent, very big room filled with balding men, all eating their yogurt in silence. And it was such a touching image of insecure waiting for that surgery that I was struck by the image. And then it took a moment before I just knew what I wanted to do. Firstly, I wanted to make a documentary about it, but then I thought, yeah, it's maybe too direct. And it was when I was sitting with my also balding brother that I thought that there is something, because we were laughing with the fact that he is 4 years older. So like he became more or less 4 years earlier bald than me, and I was laughing with him when he got bald, and I felt it was the only thing that I really couldn't love about. and then 4 years later it was my turn, and I felt that there was something to do about it. Like I didn't expect that. It was the first time in my life too that men around me started telling something about aging and how baldness affected their image about themselves, which I hadn't ever, like, sometimes someone when you're younger tell something about a struggle with a body image, but suddenly I came in a group big that had the same struggle than I could recognize. So that was the initial idea.
I have two older brothers, and they both have full heads of hair. So I'm the baby in the family, and I've been cursed. Nina, let's jump over to you. Tell us about the origins of your film. Why tell this story? Why tell it now? What was it about the idea? When did the idea come about, and what compelled you to make the film?
Yeah, for me, it first came from visual interest. I really love the work of Ray Harryhausen and how he combines like stop motion and live action. Like I love films like Jason and the Argonauts and Clash of the Titans, and I really felt like it stood the test of time. I mean, you could see the technique still, and I really loved that, but it was still convincing when you put it together. So it came from wanting to do something with that, and my love for the nostalgic kids TV shows as well. But then it became a much more personal story actually along the way, because I set up this world with these 3 miniature humans that work for this creator. But then when I was writing the last version of the script, which was 5 years into the development, I changed myself as a maker as well, and I went through a personal experience of loss. I was taking care of someone that needed palliative care, and we were all living in this house together, and to take care of him. And when he died, I saw around me how everyone reacted very differently to his death. Some people were kind of feeling like they were freed in some ways because it was such a long time taking care of him, and some people were really clinging on to the past and to his legacy, and that made its way into the story of these 3 little humans. Mary is trying to keep making the show and do everything right, and then Fumbleton, he kind of feels freed and can now show his serious skills as a Shakespearean actor, finally, after having had like done the series for so long and he's playing a stupid kid's character. So I approach it with like absurdity and humor, but that's the best way for me to kind of show these kind of heavy subjects. And so it actually did come from a personal experience.
You say that it 5 years in, you did your last version of the script. How long did it take you to come up to get set on the idea of kind of the show within the show as part of your main narrative?
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things that interested me. So I wanted to make something about a creator and his like puppets. Like the images even of Ray Harryhausen with his puppets inspired me. And so it came together in a show. Like, you have here Won't You Be My Neighbor? And those shows inspired me. So those things came together really naturally, the live action and the stop motion. So this was something that really started me off like early on. And also the characters never changed. So these 3 little humans, their characters never changed over the 8 years that it finally took to make it. And that always interested me. But yeah, I started it with another writer, and so I needed to make it of my own when he came off it after 5 years.
Loïc, let's jump to you. Tell Tell us about Yuck. How did the story, what was the earliest ideas for the story, and what made you decide to make this film?
In fact, it's connected to a screening of my previous short in a theater full of kids. And in this movie, the main character at some point say goodbye to his fiancée by giving her a little kiss. And at this moment, all the kids in the audience start to scream, "Oh, yeah, it's so disgusting. I cannot watch it." And so it was so fun for me to see all this reaction. I didn't expected that. And so I was surprised, but in the same time, it bring me back to my own childhood when I was disgusted too by the kiss. And I didn't wanted to watch it. I put my hand on my eyes, but in the same time, I did that when there was kids on movie. And so I wanted to make a movie about the kiss and the reaction it can provoke to kids, but I needed to have a concept to speak about that. And so it's when the idea of having a contrast between the sound that say yuck and the image that say the desire to kiss happen with the lips that start to shine in color. And at the beginning, it was not the pink lips, but it was like opposition between a graphism in black and white line and the lips in gouache in color when the people wanted to kiss. But the graphism, when nobody wanted to kiss someone, was only black and white. So I needed to put more color in it. And so having a lot of color, I needed it to have a rule for the lips. And so that's where the idea of the pink came out. And so it's almost that. And I think that it could be a funny movie, but I also knew that it could allow me to speak like team, like beginning of feelings, the fear of other people gaze, and also about the notion of your own secret garden. And for me, I think it was also inspired by the kids I was, because I was really shy and really looking at the other. So I think the main character is kind of similar to me, but this was not really conscious. I think I created like that. And at the end, my friend told me like, "Oh, he acts like you."
How long did it take you to kind of come up with the setting, this like campsite, caravan site, where you've got a lot of different families obviously that come together, and they're all in very close quarters, so it's hard to not see people living their lives as if you're just hanging out.
The writing process of the movie took me 3 years and a half. And at the beginning, the story was not in a campsite. It was first in a park, then at school. And when it was at school, it was with super young school for children around 3 or 4. And at this time in France, at least, children have a nap. So that's during this version of the script that the idea for the end with everyone sleeping and having the lips shining came out. But the problem with this version was that the children around 3 or 4 are not acting so disgusted by kiss. They are not in that. It's a bit more later that it happened. So I needed to find a place where the kids can be together, that I can have a night scene, but also where they can look some kiss. And so the campsite was perfect for that. And so it arrived during the last version of the script, but not exactly the last one, but I think at this point the script was okay, the concept was okay, but I needed to make a lot of version of script again to solve the architecture of the script.
Sasuke, if you can ask Takashji for us, where the idea for Magic Candies came. What was the reason why this film was made, as opposed to any other stories might have been rolling around in everybody's head.
私は日本から来てるんですけれども、 韓国の原作の絵本なんですね。私は韓国の原作の絵本を読んだのは初めてで、素朴でありながら力強いテイストにとても驚きました。まずそこまでどうぞ。
Yeah, so Magic Candies originates from a picture book from Korea. And this was like my first time reading a Korean picture book. And I was really impressed on how simple it was, but very powerful, the message.
で、このキャラクターの雰囲気がとても気に入りまして、ストップモーションのような、いわゆるクレイアニメーションのような形での、絵本の制作スタイルというのを初めて見たし、これはぜひ、映像化してみたい。ストーリーも大変秀逸ですし、きっと世界中のみんなに感動してもらえるんじゃないかと思って、それをちょっとやってみたいなと思ったんです。
Yeah, so I was really drawn in by the atmosphere of the characters, like because the visual of the art book, the picture book it was very similar to like stop motion or clay animation. And I was thinking like, and this was the first time I've seen such art in a picture book, in a children's book. So then I wanted to really make it into a visual movie so that, so everyone all over the world could see it and be moved by it.
Takashji, were you looking to adapt books because you wanted to do a project, and so you were looking at a bunch of different potential source, story sources, or did this just happen? You happened to see it, or someone shared it with you, and you were moved to the point where I think we want to make this into a short.
私はプロデューサーという仕事なので、24時間何かを映像化できないかということをずっと考えてるんですね。たまたま、知り合いの出版社の方から、この絵本を紹介してもらって、その瞬間に、これをやりたいと思ったんですね。だけど、絵本ってショートストーリーだし、それから、なかなかビジネスに結びつきづらいので、しばらくどうしようかなと思っていたんですが、こうして映画祭に参加できるような形に気がついて、それだったら、きちんと制作していけるんじゃないかなと思って、今回に至ったということですね。
Yeah, so because I am a producer, I am always like constantly 24/7 thinking about, is there anything I could make to make into a visual? But that's when like a friend from a publisher had told me about this book. And as soon as I saw this book, I was like, this is it. So then, but because it's like a children's picture book and it's very short and it's very hard to make it into like a commercial, business, I was like a little hesitant about it. But then I thought about it and discussed it, and I thought we could make this. We could make this into production. Participating in like the short animation genre. So then we decided to do it.
I'm going to jump to our next question. Takashji, I'm going to stay with you for this. We'll start with you. I know that your film, and as you mentioned, the visuals, they have a stop motion feel to them, even though they're done with CG. How did you arrive at the look of your film? Was there ever any consideration of making it in stop motion? What inspired the designs and the style of the animation, and how long did it kind of take to adapt the 2D art from a book into a 3D, a 3D CG film?
まず、我々はとにかく原作の持つテイストを大事にしたいと思うんですね。で、その原作の雰囲気を大事にした上で、いかに世界観の広がりを持たせるかというのが、絵本から映像化にするとき一番肝心な点だと思っています。その時に、このままクレイアニメーション、ストップモーションアニメーションで作ると、多分原作を超えるような表現とか、原作から新たな映像化することによって新たなことが起きるってなかなか難しいかもしれないと思ったんです。で、3DCG にしたときに、いわゆる一般的な3DCG のイメージですと、滑らかにフルアニメーションで動くということを思われると思うんですが、ただ、それをやってしまうと、この原作に合わない。 なので、日本の 2D アニメーションでよくやる、リミテッドアニメーションという方式を取ったんです。動きを少し、制約して、コマ落としのような感じをちょっと使う。それによって、原作のキャラクターの持つ雰囲気や、動きっていうのを表現できたんではないかなと思って。
Yeah, so what was really important to us when adapting the children's book was the keeping the taste and the atmosphere of the original. And then I thought that by doing that, we could expand like the world setting of the original book. So I think, if we had used like clay animation or stop motion, using that would be difficult to overcome the appeal of the original. And I think when people think of like, oh, like it's going to be animated, people will think like the movement will be like naturally flowing and fluid. But we use this a lot in 2D animation. Like this is a technique that we use, but we use something called limited animation, where we restrict some of the movements of the animation. Like, so it's more like panel to panel kind of movement. And I really think that was able to keep the atmosphere and the taste of the original.
Loïc, let's jump over to you. Tell us a little bit. You mentioned a little bit with regards to decisions on how to handle the color and the lips and such. And I'm sure you were very kind of concerned about that, because if you didn't nail that, that's something you have to absolutely nail for the effectiveness of the film. So how did you arrive overall at the look, the hand-drawn animation look? And what inspired the designs, styling, animation, and then dig a little bit into also, as you were saying before, with regards to decisions on how to handle the lips and the what ultimately got all the kids to go yuck.
As you said, the color is in the center of the concept of the movie, so we needed to be super careful of that, and so it drive the way we made the design. For example, I didn't want it to have black outline to let the color come alive, because if there was outline on the lips, that will enclose the color. Also, I wanted to focus the attention of the viewer on the lips. So that's why the graphics are in simple design with not a lot of details. And also, all the graphics are in solid colors to contrast with the lips with the glittery effect. This glittery effect, for me, it was a way to have something moving and fascinating to look at, but also it remember me the candies I ate when I was a kid, sparkling under my tongue. For the 2D choice it's for many reasons. First, I'm doing drawing since I'm a kid, so for me, as it's a short film, if there was a problem, I could solve I, any task on it. For example, we were late on the animation because we calculate the animation in on the second, but not based on the fact that often there was 5 characters speaking on the same shot. So we ended to be late, and so we decided to transfer the budget for the background to the animators to let them finish the job, because I was super happy of what they were doing, and so I decided to do all the background by myself. So the 2D allowed me to do that. The 2D was also I think a way for me to keep the graphics simple, but also to change easily the shape of the character to let them be really alive and connected to the voices. And also one of the inspiration of the graphism is probably Dragon Ball Z, because when I was uh, a kid, I used to draw a lot Son Goku, and so I didn't think about that, but at the end I was like, wow, but this on the hair of the main character really look like the hair of Son Goku, and I was so happy to keep that when I noticed it. So that's kind of many inspiration that drove me to the graphism, and probably the last thing that made me want to do 2D animation is that I have a lot of friends who do 2D animation, and we planned to do the animation in a residency where everyone was roommate. And so being there with my friend was a super cool option to do the movie. So having 2D was also perfect for that.
How long did it take you to arrive at the final design decisions with regards to the lips and the coloration and the glowing and sparkling?
I think it took all the time of the production. That's been 5 years and a half, because I think each time it was the deadline to start one stuff. It was the time when the decision was made. For example, for the graphism, I probably did the final graphism like 2 days. I finished it 2 days before we start the layout. So until the moment of the deadline, things were still. I still question it, all the process. Even if the question were going in more and more in the same direction, but the final decision was really at the deadline point. Also, for example, for the effect on the lips, at the beginning it was just pink lips, then lips with an effect drawn by the end. Then a friend of me, Paul Cabon, get the idea to have an animated texture, but he did that with paper leaf, with the grain of the paper leaf. But then for the first animation test, it was someone else who did the compositing, and he bring the idea to have something more numerical and more sparkling. So it arrived, and at the end we had these references, and at the end for the compositing, it was Nicolas Trottignon who saw the effect we had in the animation test and say, okay, I will try to go in this direction, but I will do it in another way. So this way we will have more control on the glittery effect and all that. So each time we try to improve the process little by little. And so it was interesting to have that, because in my shorts when I was student, often the creative part stopped at the animatic. And here, the creative part was continuing all the time. For example, the color of the film, we choose them after we had started the animation. And the color of the film, we made a color script with Elie Martins. And the fact to have the color on the shot make me change the elements in the background. For example, in the animatic, I had drawn, for example, 3 tents in the background, but when it was on the color script, it was like too much color in the background. So we decided to remove the tent and put just a bush, for example. So every process changed some detail all the time, and it was fun for me because it kept me awake in terms of creativity during all the process of the movie.
Nina, lot of animation in the stop motion film. A lot of, in essence, you're making a live action film, just one frame at a time. What inspired the designs? It's not just stop motion. You have unique style to the film and the characters. What inspired the design? Why choose the look that you did, and how did you arrive at kind of a visual aesthetic and tone for telling your story?
Yes, I was looking for this big contrast in the images, so that contrast. I mean with contrast, like the TV show, kind of sweet and innocent look, and then the dark reality of the studio and their lives. So I come from a theater background. So my mom is an actress and my dad is a theater technician, and I think there is a bit of theatrical kind of framing, and there is obviously you can see they're almost on the theater sets sometimes. So that's a big part of what comes in, and also I love the work of Jan Swankmajer. So there's this absurdity to some of the images as well. that I really love. But yeah, it was really about creating this contrast between the sweet and the dark for me that I think I needed in this film.
Tell us a little bit about how you designed your characters, how long it took to kind of come up with the final designs, because there's a lot of physical, you're manufacturing every single asset and every single piece for the film, so to speak, and that's not a trivial amount of work. So I can't imagine that you're changing your designs all the time.
Yeah, it's true. It was actually the hardest thing with this film. It was making the characters. So because I was working with a live action TV show host, and I felt like the puppets, the characters, needed to feel of the same world, but at the same time, I wanted to make them feel really stop motion, like handmade. And this is why Ray Harryhausen was such a big influence for me. But that process took absolutely ages, because also because of the skill, because we worked on actual life-size sets. So everything you see is shot in camera, even the really big wides that you see at some point, they're all done in camera. So we had these huge sets that also were put on animation tables, so the animators could reach in to animate the puppets on the floor, for instance. So that meant we had a 4-meter tall set, and that was split up in 3 parts. But that meant that also the puppets needed to be of a certain size to fit with the real life, like real size props. Normal stop motion puppets are much bigger, especially if you need all this detail in the expression. Because I knew with making the animatic, I needed a lot of expression from them, especially Mary. And because she needed to be so small, it made me go to a technique that I've never used before. So my previous film was all I made it myself. I made the puppets myself with wool, like it was raw wool, and I felted it. And this, I needed to get much more expression. So I needed to use a 3D printing technique for the faces, which scared me because I'm not a computer person and I like to do everything traditional. So I probably went around it in a very long way. I don't know if it's the right way, but it was my way. So I sculpted them all first in clay. The characters much bigger, so I could get that handmade feel to them. I used all the recording of the voice record we did with the actors to get some of the expressions in. So I sculpted that, and then that was 3D scanned with this scanner that looks like a hairdryer. It's insane. And then that was put into the computer, and then they were made smaller and printed out, so we could make the molds out of that. And then to get all the expressions in, I basically had to I had help from an amazing 3D modeler that helped me with all the facial replacements. So we used the 3D face. Like this is the puppet. I don't know if you see it. So this is like the Mary puppet. It's quite small, and you can see here she has like the 3D printed faces. So you can click them on and off. And actually there's not very many. It was another way of making it look more stop motion and more handmade, is that I didn't use that many facial replacements. She probably only has 30, which is not very much at all. But it gave me the stop motion feeling back, because actually they came out much more human than I expected when I finally got to printing them. So yeah, it was a long process, and it was really tricky, but also really rewarding.
Nicolas, now tell us about Beautiful Men. What your process was for coming up with the design, inspiration for the designs, choices for the way you animated it, and what your process was to kind of come up with the look and feel for the film.
So initially it was a 2D project, and we had all the fundings to start. And 2 months before we would get started, I did the final draft, the final draft, like it's in the title. And it was suddenly more about loneliness and the baldness of the character, so it's kind of tactile. And I started drawing these layouts, and I didn't manage to do it like I wanted. And I worked for 7 years for an artist where I was responsible for all his sculptures and installations. So I had kind of a background in this. And then someone offered me a little book with the script and some making of pictures of Anomalisa. And there was a making of picture in it where it wasn't lighted at all, and you still see the rake from the main character in his back, and you even saw someone like touching the puppet to put it in the right way. And it was such a lonely thing to see, that I was realizing that I wouldn't be able for myself to draw such thing. And I called the producer, who is luckily a good friend of mine, to ask if we could do it in stop motion. And he was like, "Okay, let me think 3 days, and I'll call you back." So I waited for 3 days, and then he called me. I said, "Okay, it's fine. Whatever you want to do, it's important that it's the way you want to do it. But we'll have some money issues because." The countries that we normally work with are France and the Netherlands. We already asked for our funding over there, so we had to ask if it's okay to change technique, but it wasn't possible to ask in this country for more budget. So for these reasons, I went to my workshop. I built all the sets on my own, and meanwhile, I was sculpting the characters in Blender, and I was struggling a bit, like for to have a, a feeling of realism, but also something that was like Nina said, something that was more towards and the animation and the stop motion look. And at that moment, there was an exhibition of Fernando Botero in Belgium, who has this amazing sculptures and paintings that are often very funny because just of the look. And it's these very round characters with rather tall faces in the round heads, small faces in the round heads, but they have a lot of character, although they really look like the silhouettes are rather similar. So I started trying something like that. So Koen and Bart, uh, were the first that I sculpted, and it was really based on that. And then afterwards, we started to go in production, and so the producer and I were talking a lot about how to do it in a way that was possible. So I told him that I'd be the on the set, the executive producer and the assistant to myself. So it was in a way a thing that was really, because it was my first emotion, it was really interesting to do. But also I understood then that, like, when there is a problem on set, normally this problem first goes to the producer or the assistant, and they try to solve it, and they try to see if there is extra budget. But I really wanted to tell the story just with the budget we had. So whenever a problem came up, was thinking every night like how to solve it, and it was super interesting to me to work like that. But that also meant that in the end, I didn't make the film that I had in mind, but it was a really interesting process to me, and we we did we worked rather chronological on the film, so the ending wasn't there for a very long time, and I was still doubting how to do it, and I know myself that the ending is going rather fast or in a suddenly other direction than the rest of the film, which was because I was trying to find a way to end it without going over budget. And I saw uh, I Vitelloni from Fellini, which is a film about young man being in a small village and doing really stupid stuff. And at the end of the film, everyone left, and the last one who leaves, he goes on a train leaving the village, and while being on the train, he looks out of the window. It's in the morning, early in the morning, and while looking out of the window, Fellini did something where you had the impression that uh, um, looking out the window, you see the people of the village sleeping in their beds and in the just in their rooms. So it was a beautiful thing because you had the impression that nobody cared about their story. They just passed by in the village, and whether they are there or not, nobody cares, which was a rather a thing that I felt on the right place for what I was studying too. That like they had their personal insecurities. They go to an enormous city like Istanbul. It's their own little drama. It's during pandemic, and nobody cares whether they passed by in this enormous town or not. So that's a bit of the way it went.
How long did it take to make your film? How long, pre-production? How long did it take to produce? And how long did it take to get your funding?
So the funding actually came together over a few years, but it didn't take that long because I started this film when I got some funding from Canal Plus at the Annecy Festival for my previous film. So that set everything in motion. And when you get the first bit, it's easier to get more. So it's all about getting that first kind of push, I think. So we got the funding, but because it was such an ambitious project, we needed to get the funding from like multiple countries, and this was a huge puzzle that I never knew like how it really worked, but I know now it's one of the things I learned on this production. In the end, we finally had a 4-country co-production. So that meant that also where you get that money, you have to spend that money. So that's why I live in England. I'm Dutch, but I live in England. So I did most of the development there and the voice record, but then I needed to film it in Belgium. The puppets were made in the Netherlands. And finally, the post-production was done in the south of France. So that was a very nice way to end the production. But that puzzle took very long, actually. So the money came quite quickly, but then doing that puzzle and getting the crew in all the different places, all crew that I didn't know, that was really the big puzzle. And then also me like finding the story that I wanted to tell took quite long, and also trying to fit it to that budget. So that was really the 8 years that I'm talking about. So the puzzle and me trying to find the film I wanted to make. And then actually the production of it went really quite fast. I mean, the puppet making was long, but that was because there was some hiccups there, which I won't get into now. But it was, I think, 4 months or something, maybe, something like that. 4 months to really get the puppets to get the first faces like that were actually good printed, because we did a lot of prints and trying to find the right printer in all different countries. And finally, we found someone in Belgium that normally printed factory parts, but was luckily very good, and they did the faces for us. And then we filmed for 6 months in Belgium, and we did that on 3 sets. So we had 2 animators animating at the same time to save time. We did 4 seconds per animator per day, so we did 8 seconds a day. And that lasted 6 months. And then I went for the post-production, and that I think lasted 3 months.
Loïc, what about for you in your film?
The writing and the founding took like 3 years and a half. And then the production took 2 years, and it was like around 8 months for just the animation, and we did the backgrounds after the animation. So that's approximately that.
And how long did it take for you to get your funding?
For the founding, it took 3 years and a half, approximately, because before we wanted to be sure to be able to do all the production, so we didn't start it before we had minimum budget. Also because we're kind of newbie. I've done a previous short, but it was like a commissioned one for new graduated people. And so it was the first time I did a personal and professional short. And Juliette, one of my producer, it was the first time she was producing a movie. And Manon, it was the first movie she produced in her new company. So we wanted to be sure to do all the steps one by one. So it took 3 years and a half, but during the production, we found some extra funding because there was distributor for theater that buy the movie at the end. So, and we had some extra helps.
Nicolas, what about for you?
From starting to end, it took like the first script to the final film. It took 3 years, I think. So the funding must be around 2 years, and so just as Nina, we were on 3 sets with 2 animators during 6 months, but we had 6 seconds a day. And at the same time of Nina, our puppets are made there too, and it also took quite a while because of some hiccups I won't go into. But it's yeah, we had kind of the same process, because I remember Steven the Bill visiting our set at a certain point, and it was like within a few weeks that we started animation at the same time. I was talking about so it's we started begin just before COVID, and then ended in March 2023, I think. And post-production, there was 1 month of post-production, even not. And it was just the sound design that came a little bit later, but also that was I think ready 1 month and a half after starting the the animation of the project.
Takashji, what about for you in your film?
原作のペクヒナさんとお会いして、映像化の許諾を得てから映像の完成までは、およそ5年ぐらいまずかかってますね。で、そこからキャラクターの造形も含めて、実際に、CGI で制作したのは3年ぐらい、こうコツコツ積み重ねて作っていったと思います。もちろん先生にシナリオをこういうふうにしていきたいんだとか、キャラクターはどういうふうに相談したらいいだろうとか、どういう映像にしたらいいだろうかということを、間でその相談しながらですね。ただそこで大変だったのは、韓国語と私は日本語、それから途中に英語も交えながら、その三角語で みんなで相談しながらやってったっていうところが、まずは一番大変なところでしたね。で、式に
Yes,
ついては、式については、これは私は会社に所属しているプロデューサーですので、いかに会社を説得して、ビジネスとしては難しいんだけれども、会社のブランド価値を高めるためには、この作品必要なんだということを説得するのに、まあ、やっぱりそれなりの時間はかかりましたね。
I think from getting the rights to the original picture book to the completion of the film maybe took about 5 years. I think from like character creation and then all the way to the, creating it to CG and everything, the animation took about maybe 3 years, little by little. But I think throughout the whole process, we kept, going back to, Beck's sense, Miss Beck, who's the author of the children's book, and we kept asking her, or sending her script, or getting approvals, asking her opinions. Like we kept discussing throughout the whole film or throughout the whole process. I think what was the difficult part about that process was that because it's in Korean and I speak Japanese, but also there was like some English in it, so we were using like 3 languages to communicate with one another. So I think that was a little difficult part for us. So for the funding, so since I'm a producer of a corporation, it was really up to what do I say to convince the company to, convince them to give us the funds, like this is a valid business. So then I think it took a good amount of time to convince the company.
We've got time for one question from a fast question from Prasanth out in the audience, which is actually exactly one of the questions that I was prepared to ask you guys, and we'll finish off our discussion. Nicolas, we'll start with you. Have you prepared your speech yet for if you win the Oscar?
No, I even don't have a tuxedo.
No speech and no tuxedo. I hope you get both together before Sunday.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Nina, what about for you?
No, actually, no, not so far.
Yep.
Yeah,
You
it makes
thought
me
about what you
nervous.
say?
Oh no, it makes me way too nervous to think about that. So I'll just leave it up to the moment, if so.
Loïc, what about for you?
No, but I have a tuxedo now. But I also don't have the speech for the Caesar in case we win the Caesar, and it's tomorrow. So I need to do this one first.
Takashji, what about for you?
今日実は監督が今日現地に移動するんで今日参加できてないんですけれども、到着してから監督と2人で相談して、まあ漫才のような掛け合いになればいいねみたいなことは思ってますが、今はもう全然そこは考えられないです。
Yeah, so today the director will arrive in LA. He's traveling right now, which is why he couldn't attend this webinar. But I think after he arrives, we'll maybe discuss about it. We're hoping that if we could be like those 2 comedians who like just banter with each other, that'd be nice. But other than that, like I haven't thought about it at all.
Haven't thought about it. Well, I'm sure whomever whomever wins, and unfortunately only one film can be chosen. I'm sure you guys will have something wonderful to say in sharing and in sharing the win with everyone. We've come to the end of our time. Unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions. I want to thank you all for participating on behalf of Maria Elena. I want to wish you all, I want to congratulate you all on the success your films have had to date. You guys, there's a lot of festival and other award winnings amongst you guys. The films have been recognized. Audiences have loved the films, and we've enjoyed getting a chance to talk to you about how these films got made. And Nicolas, Nina, Takashji, Loïc, I want to thank you all very, very much for joining us today. And once again, thanks for participating, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.